you're enjoying Career Zoo so far. My name is Jonathan McCrea. I'm going to be comparing a few of the talks we're going to be having here on the main stage at Career Zoo. I'm a science journalist and broadcaster, and I run a communications consultancy called Whip Smart Media. If you want to take your seats, we're going to be starting in just a few minutes' time. This panel is about Fintech or financial technology, where we are now, where it's come from, and where we're going in the future. We're going to do a Q&A, so if you would like to raise your hand, just throw some questions to us, that's fine. And what we'll do is we'll do that halfway and at the end as well, because sometimes when you talk for a long time, people think, oh, I got a good question, and then they go, oh, forget about it. So we want to hear your questions. We want some feedback from you, so just raise your hand and we'll jump to you. So if everybody is ready, we'll begin. I'd like to welcome my panel. I've got Jonathan Ryder on my left. He's EY Payments and Fintech Lead. Orla Power is Head of Marketing at Brite. We have David Roche, who's Director of Financial Services at Pramerica, and David Tighe, who's Head of Innovation at Bank of Ireland. I think it's probably best to start off with an overview, if you don't mind, David, and because you represent old school banking, maybe you might talk to us a little bit about Bank of Ireland, where Ireland is in financial technology, and what fintech, the industry, is looking like right now.
Sure, thanks Jonathan. So I think it is a fascinating time for fintech, because what you've seen is, you've seen a very early wave of disruptors looking at how can I do it faster, leaner, better. You know, looking at traditional banks and saying, I think we can do that better for customers. And the early wins were there, the Stripes, the Squares of the world. But we've come to another wave now, and we've started to see a different wave that's really opened up, which is the reality of financial services and the difficulty in that of things like regulation, trust, security, and building out the business. But also the fact that these businesses and startups are very lean and agile, and they can do UX and CX phenomenally well. And those partnerships are starting to build. And that's what you're seeing in this wave now in fintech, is a lot of banks are working with startups, fintechs, tech companies, and saying, we think there's something we can add: distribution, funding, access to customers, regulation and knowledge around very complex systems, but we think you guys can build in a very fast and lean way. How do we work together? And that's created a very strong story in fintech. It's where all the VC investment is coming from. But what it's also doing is it's doing something really exciting for Ireland. And that's the thing that I think really stands out. There is a phenomenal, thriving community in fintech in Ireland, not just Dublin, what David and the guys in Pramerica are doing outside of Dublin, but across the country. You're seeing...
Why is that, David? I mean, everyone, like, Ireland's known as this pharmaceutical centre. We're now, sort of a technology centre. Why is fintech suddenly something that's happening in Ireland?
So there's a lot of complex reasons why, but very basically what you have is a phenomenally strong tech community, a really strong financial services community. You put the two together, you've got fintech. Now, you've got to have to make sure that the supports are in play to develop that. And how you do that is things like some of the representative bodies that are out there now, Fintech Payments Association. You make sure that there's strong funding in play. You make sure that there's incubation spaces, and you really promote that concept. So you're seeing events every day in fintech in Ireland at the moment, and it's become stronger and stronger and stronger. So for me, there's huge potential in it. We've only scratched the surface when it comes to fintech. There are so many more next steps in where this is going to go, and I think the real word that's devised all of this is that word of collaboration. The likes of what Brite do, the likes of what we're seeing in other fintechs, you're going to see that the larger corporates, the larger businesses collaborate with those startups.
I know Bank of Ireland are, people are familiar with what Bank of Ireland do, because they're one of the better known brands in Ireland when it comes to banking, of course. But Brite is maybe an organisation that people may not have heard of, Orla. Yes. And I suppose you represent these younger, newer organisations that are trying to change things a little bit and change the customer experience. Why don't you tell us a little bit of what Brite does and your thoughts of where we are in fintech right now?
Sure. So I head up the marketing for Brite. Brite is a billing communication software company. So we take structured documents like bills and invoices, and we apply analytics, design and personalization to create communications that our customers can actually understand, that will elicit a behavior for better business outcomes. So bills, invoices, they're clearer, easy to understand, and then they drive the outcome. So what do you
You're
want
making
the customer
bills
to
sexy,
do?
essentially.
We make bills sexy.
Is that possible?
But you know, I think this is a great example of what happens when you know the startup attitude is applied to things that we do and we take for granted every day. And I was speaking to Orla backstage, and she was saying, how many times you look at your bill, you go, ugh, and you throw it in the bin, or you file it away. I throw it in the bin. I know I shouldn't sound like
Yeah.
who cares?
It's really
So
good.
I don't want to know.
The way we look at the world is customer first. So customer centricity, and it may be an old adage, but it is the only way forward. And I think that's where we differ from the legacy traditional banking and FS institutions, is that we look at the problem and then we work backwards from that. So if you're looking at the digital first customers, if you're looking at the always on customers, the millennials, if you're trying to elicit behavior from them, so if you want them to sign up to a student bank loan, or if you want them to move on then for people signing up for a mortgage, and then on to people signing up for pensions, how do you communicate with those? What
Please tell me
kind
not
of-
planning like Snapchat bank applications.
We've already gone there.
Have you? You bloody have, haven't you?
Yeah.
You need to understand your customer. So you need to understand their data. As well as their structured data, how long have they been with the service, how do they use it, what is their patterns, as well as things like artificial intelligence, machine learning, combining what you know about the customer with things like sentiment analysis to understand how this customer works, and therefore how you communicate better with this customer and elicit the behavior you want. Get them to sign up, get them to download the app, whatever it is you want them to do.
It's that end-to-end customer journey.
Exactly, it's
Yeah.
journey building. Understand where the customer is exactly on that journey and what they need at that point. So somebody starting out is completely different to somebody who's signing up for a mortgage with 3 kids.
Jonathan, you sort of see both sides of it with EY. Do you want to maybe just talk a little bit about what EY do, and then what you see
Yeah, sure.
Fintech and where it is at the moment?
Sure. Yeah. So I head up the fintech and payments.
I'm going to get you to do this. If you don't mind, I'm going to get very close to you. Just do that. It's nice
Okay.
and close.
Lovely.
And project. Remember your RADA training, Jonathan, you were telling me about earlier.
So I head up the fintech and payments practice within EY. So we're supporting clients with large-scale, complex payments implementations, looking at things like PSD2, digital customer journeys, agile implementation, kind of the full spectrum. And I guess as you
Don't worry, we will explain PSD2. I know people are going, what is that? We will, anything that I don't understand, you'll learn, okay? That is my role. So go on.
So as you mentioned, we kind of see both sides. So we work hand in hand with the traditional FS companies, and then also with the fintechs. And I guess David hit the nail on the head there in terms of collaboration. So I was at Cybos last month. I don't know, think of it like the Super Bowl of banking. A lot less exciting, but think of it like that.
The
And
Super
it's
Bowl of banking.
The Super Bowl of banking.
You need to set a scene for us. What exactly does the Super Bowl of banking look
Super
like?
Bowl of banking. It's all of the banks across the world get together for 1 week. I would say probably
It sounds like the beginning of a great James Bond movie.
20 or 30 times the size of this. It's
20
incredible.
to 30 times.
It's incredible. It's incredible.
Okay.
Basically, over the years, that's been going for the last 30 years. What that's now become is a hotbed of all banks in one place at one time. And now you see the financial technology companies coming there also. And obviously ourselves being there to speak to both sides. But you see the financial technology companies coming with their wares, talking to the banks across Europe, across the world, saying, this is how we can help you. So it is all about them finding that exit, finding how they can get to the mass market through the banks.
David, maybe you might talk to us a little bit about Pramerica and this. You come from an American company that does great work here in Ireland. Maybe you might talk a little bit about Pramerica and the global scene for you. What's happening in fintech?
Okay, good morning all. David Roche is my name, and I'm working with a company called Pramerica. Pramerica is the global operations center for Prudential Financial, which is a large US, massive US insurance company. And over the last 16 years since we have started, we have created Pramerica now as a true fintech company in Ireland. We span the full financial spectrum. So whilst David here has said fintech is a huge, fast, furiously growing industry, we have been growing fintech in the last 16 years in a very exponential way. And to date, we have about 1,400 people in our company, all associated with the full financial spectrum of fintech. So really, over the next 4 or 5 years, I think you will see a huge reshaping of the financial industry. And it's all driven by one word, that's technology. So whilst I was saying earlier on that no one has heard in the last 3 or 4 years the word profit, it's now all been driven by technology. So profit has been replaced by technology. And if technology is the key driver for the future of profit, I would see that fintech is one of the key drivers for reshaping financial services. And perhaps the biggest change that's about to happen is the introduction of blockchain and Ethereum. These are new technologies that are going to reshape financial services and reshape the whole industry, whether it's banking, insurance, or custodian. You will see all peer-to-peer trading coming in, and you will see technology as the main driver for that.
Okay, so hands up in the room who understands the word blockchain. Would you like to come up here and explain about it? David, would you explain what blockchain is and why it's so important? I mean, people may have heard the term or whatever, but why blockchain will change how we deal with financial institutions?
I think if I was here in 2007 or 2008 and I was asked that question, blockchain was the underpinning technology and software behind Bitcoin, the digital currency. But today, blockchain is a technology that one could describe it as a digital platform. It's all about distributed ledger technology. It's a decentralized base. It's not centralized like the banking systems are at the moment. So there's a lot of innovative opportunity if one is going to go down the route of blockchain.
In what way, Dave?
One of the areas the way we think about blockchain is, and I always think about the potential of blockchain, a phenomenal technology. If you think about any transaction in your life that you've ever done, and there's a third party who does any type of validation on that. So that could be a payment, it could be a clearinghouse, it could be a central bank. It could be a contract you've signed with somebody. It could be a solicitor who looks at it and says, I'll verify that. Alternatively, it could be when you buy your house. You get a contract, you get a land registry, and somebody will verify that.
Isn't it mad that, isn't it mad that like in 2016, that's still the case that,
100%.
if you want to buy a house, you get a signature from somebody and they witness it, and it's a piece of paper and how is that so difficult to fake? I mean, it's just amazing that that's how we work.
That's what's fascinating about blockchain. So if you take any of those transactions and you say, well, now we have this distributed ledger where we can place them, and in the middle, this third party is not required. The blockchain will do that for us. That validation and verification will do for us. Once you think of it like that, the possibilities become limitless.
So can you explain? Give me a for instance, like when financial technology start using this distributed network of computers to make sure that there's not one person controlling everything, which is essentially what blockchain is. Why would a financial company want to use that, and what could they do with it?
So it becomes really, really strong for you. What you do is you look at so many options. And by the way, this is what's happening out there at the moment. I think everyone's looking for the killer use cases. Everyone's out there saying, where is this going to land for us? And the point being is it's finding the solutions that are real for customers. What are they going to do? So we always look at it across multiple things. I'll give you an example. Smart contracts. When you sign a contract, that concept of if this, then that. So I'll sign a contract with somebody, and once we do X, we will achieve Y. All the time, there's a third party verifying if X has happened. What if that sits on a blockchain? And the minute X happens, Y is paid out. It's done and dusted. No impact on it. Escrow accounts, if you've ever heard of that idea of where money sits in a holding account, and then somebody will access it after something happens. Landlords and tenants do them all the time. Again, there's no default. The blockchain will do that. We like it for currency transaction. So if you think about a global markets trade, we ran a proof of concept on a global markets trade where we were able to take all the systems that we would have. And really what you want to show a customer, a regulator, or a bank is where in the transaction of the process is that stage of the transaction. And with blockchain, you can interrogate it at any different stage.
I think in one sentence, blockchain will bring what I would describe today as real-time integration into everyone's life in financial services. Where at the moment we have a spot, which is 2 days, and we have settlement going out as far as 20 days. I think blockchain will bring it into a real-time zero scenario, and that will be benefit for everybody. What we really want here is a win-win for everybody.
Okay.
If you looked at fintech in 2007, when the crash happened, we didn't have everyone collaborating together. Today we've got the banks, the insurance companies, the custodians, we've got the e-commerce customers and the regulators all in the one room, and it's collaborate or die now. And that's why all of this is going to be a win-win for everybody, because no one individual is going to go out and score a goal on their own anymore. And in Pramerica, that's what we're doing for our parent company, Prudential Financial.
Okay, so I wanted to talk a little bit about collaboration, because, you know, Bank of Ireland are saying, you know, we like to collaborate, and Pramerica talking about if everybody gets together. What's your experience of it, Orla? You know, you're trying to key into this market of, you know, an older traditional banking system. Do you find that everyone is open doors, that everyone wants you to jump in and fix their problems, or do they are traditional banks unnerved by the huge growth of startups in this area?
No, I think there needs to be collaboration. And when you're talking about technology, back to the customer centricity, customers shouldn't need to know what blockchain is.
Yeah.
They need to know how do they get what they need done quicker, cheaper and faster.
Yes.
And how do you frame that? So most people you don't need to know what's under the hood. So there's lots of communication companies and software companies that are creating these solutions so that it's easier for the customers to do what they want to do.
It's kind of like being at the dentist. You know, you go to the dentist and the dentist pulls out that mirror and goes, now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do, and see that in there? I don't care.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I want to spend as little amount of time in this chair as I possibly can. Just do what you need to do so I can get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
I totally think, you know, the user experience should be, I've just paid this person's already been paid, and I've gotten my receipt, and it's all landed in my, and I don't have to think about it, it's on my phone, and I know that's happened.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, what you're talking about, your ethos of Brite is very much about making that a really nice experience.
Yeah, we're a design-led company, so it's completely different to the kind of traditional image of grey men in grey suits. So, I mean, for my job, when I joined a couple of years ago, it was that image of startup, and trying to, part of being in marketing was position for acquisition, and Brite has just been acquired by Amdocs, which is great. So, to try and shed that image, you've got to be able to have the agile and minimal viable product and all that methodology internally, but you must be able to hire the right team, have the right image and perception and brand to be able to run with the big dogs. You've got to have world-class products and go and compete with world-class companies. So, you know, the startups, we don't sit around eating granola bars and goji berries on you know, that's not
on
what
Buddha
we do.
bags.
Yes.
While playing PlayStation, not PlayStation 4, PlayStation 1 because it's cooler.
So it's not a load of bean bags, you know, in the office. You won't come in and find that in our place. You'll find really hard workers. Yes, you might find man buns and flip-flops, but that's okay, as long as they're dedicated and hard-working.
Is Orla being a little bit unfair because you're saying, you know, banks aren't design-led? Are they trying to get there in your experience? Or is it like the Titanic? Is it a hard thing to steer really quickly?
Yeah, it's a good one. So we're seeing, I think if you had gone back to even 2010, 2012, and you had fintechs arriving up at the bank's doors, probably wasn't that easy to push open. I think now we're certainly seeing the bank's openness to speak with fintechs. And I think it's using the strengths of both sides. So it's the banks being good at what they're doing, and that's building and having the mass market, that big customer base. And the fintech, understanding that customer journey, and being able to be good in a niche. So just having that niche and having their niche and being an expert in that niche, and being able to bring that to the banks, and the banks to be able to bring that to the mass market.
I agree. I mean, the banks have the relationships and the customer base that the startups dream about.
Yeah.
You know, so it's getting in and that collaboration of understanding the customer base and bringing in the new technologies to get those customer journeys, to improve customer experience and improve the
both points are really
End
well made,
users.
because I think it sums up, when we look at the change, and I think we've all talked about it on this couch right now, is we look at kind of three things that are really pushing financial services: the change of technology and what's happening in technology. We've touched on blockchain, but there's so many other areas. The impact of AI, what AR and VR is going to do, and so on. So technology is fundamental. Customers are changing. How they interact, taking away that friction. Every single day they're having transactions that are simple, painless, and no impact whatsoever. Just get the transaction done. Banks have to respond to that. They have to make sure that that experience is the same. And then the third thing that's really changing is how we work. And that's for every organization, for every business, for every person. We're fundamentally changing how we work. And you see that all the time. We call it an open innovation model. We call it an open ecosystem. Startups conversing with large businesses, small businesses putting their words out there and saying, I want to engage with a large corporate. And that concept of the shared knowledge, bringing that together and say, we were going to work on something together and venture design together to
David,
get there.
Can I be really blunt? The customers don't see that yet from, I think, any Irish bank, so I don't think you're alone. They're not seeing the technologies coming through. Can you explain why?
Yeah,
I'm not asking you to defend bank, but
I think
the
it's
customer
a very
experience, I
valid
think, so
point.
far has
Yeah,
actually become,
100%.
because of the crash, it's become harder for people to interact with their banks. So,
Absolutely, you touched on it. This is not a quick fix. It never will be a quick fix. It's not going to be a 3 months and suddenly there's a product out there to fix everything.
yeah.
If you look across internationally and you look across in Ireland, every bank is looking at this journey and engaged on this journey and are on different stages of this journey. We've launched different products out there that are doing really, really strong things. Our FX Pay system, our Life Online, I can go through multiple digital platforms we've launched, but the key point is it's not going to be a quick fix. And what you need to focus on is to have all of the ability to execute on those solutions, on those tools for what our customers want. We're doing a huge amount with startups at the moment. So one of the things we've done that's been a really strong focus for us is that incubation model. And that idea of incubation with startups to look at solutions for our customers. We've opened co-working spaces, 6 of them around the country. We've opened an incubation lab in Galway. And we've started to bring businesses in that we're putting out to our customers. I'll give you a great example. There's a great Irish startup that we work with called Extreme Push. It is a iBeacon push notification system to alert customers with notifications. If you go through Dublin Airport today, and if you've got a Bank of Ireland app on, you'll get a push notification saying, enjoy your holidays, here's the emergency numbers if you're abroad. And that's a lovely customer touch. It's built around what customers want, but it's provided for by an Irish business and an Irish startup.
Okay.
I think one other point.
go ahead, Dave, and then we'll go.
Just one other point is that if you look at banking industry and the financial industry, it's 200 years old, and it's got the sort of psyche in everyone's head that they're old-fashioned and they're the pillars of society years ago. And it's only in the last 10, 12 years that all the fintech innovators have come on board and they have changed that. So we embrace that change hugely, and it affords a huge amount of opportunity to give the customer what he wants. I mean, the one thing that's actually that we all agree on is that the data is the new wealth.
Yeah.
And the way we use data is going to be huge for the success of the future. In Pramerica, we've got our own innovative labs, and we see that. And we have created what I would describe as the future of the products that are required for our customers. This is terribly important, and how we use data and how we massage data and how the customer sees all of that, that takes a bit of time, and David is right there.
You're going to be careful being involved in a large financial organization using the term massaging data, David. Before we, do we have a microphone out there? Tech team, do we have a microphone out there? If we could get one, that'd be great. Just pause for a second. We're going to go back into this in a second, but anyone have any questions about what we've talked about right now? This lady here. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Roslyn. I know fintech has been in America and other parts of the world. It's a big thing here in Ireland. And we are the first set of students that just entered the course now called Fintech in National College of Ireland. And what opportunities would you have for graduates like us? Because when you go in and search for maybe vacancies, all you see experience of 1 to 2 years. So in that case, what is our hope with the first graduate students?
Okay, great question. So, I'm sure you all have something to say. Graduates see this on the advertisements of jobs all the time. 1 to 2 years required. How do you start? You want to start, Jonathan?
Certainly in EY, we run a graduate program every year. And within payments and fintech, especially, I have a number of open roles, specifically in that area. It's such a hotbed at the moment within the whole payments fintech area in Ireland that anybody with experience or anyone with relevant third level education coming in to us, we can land them very quickly out onto client site. And there's some very exciting work out there as well. So yeah, really a lot of opportunity.
I mean, we're hiring in all levels, not just on the business side. So we're looking for project managers, program managers, UX designers, full stack developers, graphic designers. You know, there's a huge amount of different types of roles that aren't necessarily what you would think as fintech. So there's plenty to explore.
David?
In our world, just to answer your question directly, we offer 12 months graduate internship programs, all under the one umbrella called Talent Pipeline. It's terribly important that the graduates understand and get this, that not alone is it just an internship, it's actually a rotational internship. So we move the graduates from the technical side of the business into the SME side of the business, which I would call the subject matter expert side of the financial product. So from that point of view, graduates are hugely important to us. The whole talent pipeline for graduate internship is the way forward. I think all universities should have proper graduate internship programs.
Yeah, great. Maybe the first thing I'd say to you is I think in the fintech space.
Hang on, Dave. Well, the voice of God's hard to talk over, so we'll just... Piano cat. Okay.
No problem. I was going to say to you, if you're coming out of NCI with the FinTech program, which I'm aware of, I think the world's your oyster. I think you've done the right course. I think you've put yourself into a position where you're going to have a lot of opportunities in front of you. With FinTech as it currently stands, there's a lot of exploration in the space. So people are finding what are the important parts. Is it that customer experience focus? Is it data analytics at the heart of the business? Is it the ability to engage with lean and agile startups? What does that process look like? We have a program, so our graduate program similarly, and what we do is we bring graduates into our digital innovation team, and they have the ability both to work on what would be the legacy system and the concept of banking as a structure, but they also work with the startup agenda that we do as well, and that's in the incubation space and working with fintechs, engage with them from an incubation point of view, from a venture capital point of view, and from building and mentoring out with fintechs as well. So it's quite an exciting area, but I think the background that you have from the point of view of the course that you've done, I think it's going to open up a lot of opportunities for you.
So hot right now. Does anyone have any other questions from the floor? We'll take two and then we'll move on. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, questions for Orla. Orla, my name's Eugene. There seems to be a trend, not necessarily in Ireland, but in the UK, where invoices are being intercepted, either electronically through to the customer, and the payment instructions are actually being changed. Is part of what you're doing an attempt to make it a lot more difficult to forge invoices that are being sent out to people?
So the question, did everyone hear that?
Not quite.
Sort of. I was just asking about, there's a thing going on in the UK where invoices are being intercepted and changed, and is Brite Bill are you trying to address that problem, or is your use case different?
No, our use case is different. So we would take the billing, the data feeds, and we do the bill presentment. So the charging and the rating is done underneath in the billing stack, and we take that billing data and present it out to the customer across all channels, paper, online, app. So
it's a user experience company rather than a financial company. We do take some
semantic checks. So we do it at the billing level, but not at the billing stack level.
And finally,
does that answer your question?
Yeah, sorry. And finally, this gentleman here.
Hi, how you doing? There's had a question there about blockchain. You said it'll be real time soon enough, but like at the moment the financial sector is so heavily regulated. For example, I work for a bank in the IFSC, and if a redemption has to be paid out and they want to change the bank details, they have to send an original copy of the bank details signed. They have to send it by post. So sometimes they're registered, sometimes they don't. It gets lost. So like the real time doesn't work then because it's so heavily regulated. So is there any way to bypass that, or how is that going to work?
So,
So the question is, you know,
It's regulation.
yeah, regulation, will that prevent innovation in general? I mean, blockchain is one example, but you know, the general, and this is what was actually perfect segue into what I was going to talk about. You know, is the financial technology industry so restricted with regulation that pivoting, that using new technologies is almost impossible? Are your hands tied because of regulation?
Yeah.
So in fact, it's quite the opposite. So maybe in some ways, but it's quite the opposite. With the advent of the new Payment Services Directive, we're finally getting into it.
Yeah.
The new Payment Services Directive, it's actually encouraging competition and encouraging innovation.
Just give us an overview. So this is the PSD2.
Correct.
Can you explain what PSD2, because this will actually affect us quite dramatically, I think, as banking customers, and if you work in the financial industry,
Yeah,
it will probably.
It's regulation being introduced in January 2018 by the European Commission. Basically, I think at its core, it's opening up the banking infrastructure and introducing and bringing under the regulation new third-party payment processors.
So if I tell my bank, I want these guys to have access to some of my data, the bank has to facilitate that technologically, which of
100%.
course is as you say, it's allowing technology to flourish, and that's legislation that's working the other way.
Exactly. So it's actually demanding the banks and the fintechs to come together and to work out how they're going to get this and how this new world is going to look. And it will be the bank or the fintech or that partnership that has the best customer offering that will win out in the end. And so certainly regulation can in some ways hold things back, but we are seeing that it is driving competition and innovation in other ways.
I think that's
you want to talk about this,
absolutely.
I'm sure.
PSD2 is the front and center of my mind at the moment. And I think you can look at it in two ways, the glass half empty, glass half full. To come back to Jonathan's point of the way banks are looking at it, I think the way progressive banks are looking at it is, this is the opportunity to create those partnerships. This is the opportunity to open it up where you can actually leverage really good user experiences and work with partners who can do that by providing the data. And I would come back to your question in relation to regulation. I think the other piece that's coming out of this, one of the areas I'm most excited about, and I think if you're working in a startup at the moment or if you're looking at financial services, the concept of reg tech or regulatory tech and how you solve those problems. There's a huge number of people in banks today who are doing process after process and saying, I think I can do that better. I want to do that better. I've got an idea for a startup.
Can I give you, for instance?
Yep.
I'm applying for a mortgage at the moment. There's some personal information I probably shouldn't have shared. But
if
you ever do this, you know, like you've got to, do you want to have that conversation? We're on stage. You can have that conversation. I'm just asking if you want to have that conversation. So when you apply for a bank, like the amount of documents you have to supply is insane. And of course, your bank's not going to give your information to somebody else, so you have to ask for the information and then give it to somebody else if you're applying for someone else. So, presumably this PSD2 will allow some companies to say, okay, if you're applying for a mortgage, give us your information, we will digitally pass it to other people, and you like it's so painful, the experience.
There are amazing. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, that's something that Brite that we're looking at as well. So something like onboarding a customer. For the big banks and the telcos that we deal with, there could be up to 10 systems-driven pieces of information that goes out to a customer, and they're all disjointed, and they all say different things. Some are sign here, some are sign up to the app, welcome text or welcome. So we're looking to streamline those processes, so combine them using our technology into maybe one or two beautifully designed communications that the customer can actually digest and understand and get the same outcome.
And it's great that people are applying. One bank that I applied to, I had to write, I scanned one, I had to send the written one, I scanned it, and then I did a phone call where I give them all the other information as well. So in 3 different ways I gave them the same amount of information. Like, that is insane. Wasn't your bank.
That's all right.
Well, one other point there, just to answer that gentleman's question. Everyone nowadays is working together, and regulation is part of that team. 12, 15 years ago, regulation was sort of like anti-business. Today they're coming forth and working with the banks and the institutions in order to make the end product absolutely right. And when we say the word reshaping financial services, you have to understand that we're not talking about the old systems. We're talking about a new way going forward. So if the old way was say that the average life of a transaction, the steps in an actual transaction, say there was 10 steps. In the new world that's coming down the tracks, the average amount of steps in that particular transaction will be down as far as 3 and 4. So instead of going from step 2 to step 10 in today's world, at this moment of time, it's step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that's what's taking up the time. So that will all go with blockchain.
You jump in there, David, and I'll ask you a question.
I was just going to maybe finish up on one of the points on PSD2 in relation. If you're sitting in the audience and you're working in a fintech or you're thinking about fintech, if you don't have PSD2 front and center for what your business is doing or for what you're thinking about, you're missing a massive opportunity.
Yeah.
PSD2 is going to create huge opportunities for fintechs, for banks, for the partnerships between them, and
hopefully for the customers too.
Ultimately for the customer solutions. Yeah. And Orla has touched on it there in relation to that whole idea of identity, that whole idea of the onboarding process, making it easier. Banks are going to have to work with a lot of partners to do that, and that's where huge opportunities are going to be created.
The other thing that could be seen as a downside to working in financial technology is that in almost every other technology, apart from maybe medical and space, if you can do this sort of, I don't know if people read the Lean Startup, you can try, you get a product, it's as good as you can get it to, get people to try it out for you, and this minimum viable product, this idea. So you start off with something, you send it out to your users, you get them to try it, and then but in finance or in med or in space, you screw up and people die or they lose all their money. So what's it like working in financial technology when the risks of failure are much bigger than, oh, sorry, the picture doesn't look the way it should on the app, or you got the pizza delivered to the wrong, or your Uber car is 20 minutes late. If you code wrong for fintech, you could lose people a lot of money. What do you see? We'll start with you, John. What do you see is that a problem, or am I imagining that?
So yes, I think if something's to go catastrophically wrong, yeah, and I think the regulator is very heavy on the banks and on new regulated third parties to ensure that doesn't happen. However, I think for the banks, it's important to build that capability to be able to fail fast. So moving to a new services-orientated architecture. But it is doing it in a piloted way. So it's getting it right with a small bunch of customers first, ensuring that it's what the customers actually need, and then launching it out. And it's being able to do that phase quickly.
Okay.
I think if we go back 5, 10 years, it was about, okay, what do we want to do? It takes 6 months to figure it out. It takes 2 years to implement it. And then the customer's changed his mind that he doesn't want it anymore. So we have to get past that.
Yeah. And for Orla, you're working if you had screwed up your model and people's information was wrong, or people thought they owed more than they did, or any of that sort of stuff, that would have been a disaster. Does that mean that you can only innovate at a certain speed?
No, because a lot of the data is already there. So it's being able to access that data and present it out. So, we have certain checks to make sure that the data is correct, but things like with legacy systems, things like changing something on a bill could take up to 10 months. To change one line item on a bill. So with our technology, we can do it really quickly, pretty much on the fly. So we're not changing the data underneath, we're changing how we present that data.
Yeah, okay, so for you it's not so. And
It's
what
not
about
a
you,
big
David?
Well, I suppose in the conscience of time, I would say that the fear of failure sharpens everyone's pencil. And perhaps the biggest significant area in fintech and say blockchain going forward is to lose the customer. So nobody wants to lose the customer. The customer expectations have changed massively from a number of years, say pre-crash. Today, the customer's expectation is looking for things now, instantly, smarter, quicker, cheaper. And so the fear of failure there is that if you don't provide that, basically you're going to lose the customer, and somebody else will take over your customer, and they'll just go down the motorway quicker than you will go.
Jonathan, I might say, I think the question itself gets right to the heart of one of the main advantages of why larger institutions want to work with startups. Because actually, yes, there's the amazing customer experience that can be built, but there's one thing at the heart of it as well that's actually happening, which is the ability for a large institution to learn how to do really lean and agile and prototyping from a company like Ryder, from a company who's able to do it fast in a way that they're able to test with customers and learn them quickly. So actually building those processes and learning from that is actually really helping a very large organization. So the question itself cuts to why those partnerships are happening.
And
all right.
the biggest
go ahead.
challenge we find is not so much the risk with the technology, it's working with these big organizations that are so siloed.
Yeah.
So there's so many data, like in different
Data pools.
departments, and trying to accumulate and disseminate all that data is a really difficult job. And that's why there's new jobs like the customer experience manager or the chief customer officer who works, umbrella across all these different departments.
Because when we ring up any organization, we don't want to hear, that's not my department.
Absolutely.
We want to hear, no problem, sir, and then let me send you a free
Yeah.
cupcake. Why are banks not doing that?
Cupcakes in the post.
Do we have any more questions from the floor? We got about 3 or 4 minutes left. If we can get a microphone to this gentleman here in the blue sweater, this guy here. It's sort of this is actually quite blockchain.
Hello?
How we're doing the microphone. I might point out. It's distributed.
It is.
Cooperation. Go ahead.
Jeff Grossman from Legal and Financial Engineering. We can all see the sector is growing very strongly. My question is really going back to the recruitment side. How are you working to fill the gap between the number of unfilled positions or new positions and the number of job seekers? So there's obviously a gap there. Tremendous number of underqualified, overqualified. Not everyone is the fit, and there's a lot of pressure in the industry. So how does recruitment respond to that challenge?
That's a really good question.
Well, just from Pramerica point of view, one of the things that we are doing is that we're engaging with the universities all around Ireland, particularly in the areas of Fintech and the graduate internship programs, because talent is the way forward in this country. It's always been an area where I believe we punch above our weight. And it doesn't matter if you don't have all of the skills at the very beginning, because I think now what all companies are doing is they're rotating you into the area and helping you along in order to get those skills. So we're not looking for the overnight sensation straight away. We're making it a journey for you, and we're partnering with you at the very beginning. And that's why we're going into universities and speaking and guest lecturing to the graduates today, to let them know that they have the basic skill and the primary degrees, but we can give them the add-ons. And that's where we're coming from.
And I'd say, that sort of stuff probably doesn't happen with many companies in this space. I think the people who are here, who are actively going out and doing their, building these amazing stands, we're going to have skyscrapers next year. What they want, they obviously, this is their way of demonstrating they're actively out to find the right people, and you may not necessarily have the CV, but they're willing to work.
This is why we do Career Zoo. This is our 4th year here. It's myself and David. It's the 2nd time we're on stage talking fintech.
Yeah.
This isn't
you wore the same thing, if I remember, last time.
It was. It's not. It's not a flash in the pan stuff. This is part of the growth of the organisation and driving it through. I might just touch on one area, which is a focus that we have, which is our own staff, and when they come into the organisation, how we engage with them. We run entrepreneur programs within the bank. So we call it Gears 48. I always kind of jokingly refer to it as a sheep dip into entrepreneurship. And it's a 48-hour program where you basically learn lean canvas, business model design, the concept of prototyping, how to understand customer validation, and build like a startup. And as we build those processes, the way we build product internally is changing and fundamentally shifting and changing. And it also makes it more ready that we can engage with the likes of a Brite Bill or a company out there as well.
Okay, quick final word from Jonathan or Orla on that?
Yeah, so internally, getting the right people is key. So how we manage that gap is internally we have training programs in fintech and in payments that we bring people through. But also what we're doing is I'm working directly with some third level institutions to identify exactly what it is that's needed for somebody to come off the conveyor belt with the skills that are needed to get a career in fintech and in payments. So that is starting, and there's more to come. I know there is one in the NCAD, which is very exciting. So there is more to come in that space in terms of specific courses in the area. Yeah.
Orla, do you want to have the final say?
I have to be honest, we are struggling to get talent in. We've got so many open roles, and we had so many CVs that came in from Spain, for example, that we actually opened an office in Madrid. So we come to these events, We do all the traditional ways of trying to recruit people, and we can't get the staff in quick enough. So we've got so many open roles. So please come over to Brite at the Amdoc stand and give us your CV, because we are hiring.
Open for business.
Open for business.
All right, we've been played off Oscar style by the voice of God. That is it from our FinTech panel. Please give a warm round of applause for our panel. We have Jonathan Ryder from EY, Orla from Brite. We have David Roche from Pramerica, and David Tighe from Bank of Ireland. Hope you enjoyed that. I'll be back in a few minutes. Go get a job if that's what you're here for. Go get a coffee if you're not. Thank you.